those who knew celebrities before they were famous, what were they like and how did they change once they reached fame? Ryan Reynolds, still the biggest dork in town. Hasn't really changed that much actually, except drinks are on him and I'm fairly sure he could bench press me now. Tell him he needs to make Deadpool happen. I went to middle and high school with Chris Pratt. Basically, he was the same kind of character he plays on Parks and Recreation. He was popular, but always nice to everyone, even the non-popular kids, and he was really funny too. I haven't seen him in years, but I assume he's still pretty cool. All in all, fame couldn't have happened to a cooler person. I'm not sure I could handle it if Chris Pratt was a D-bag in real life. Kendrick Lamar grew up in my neighborhood in West Compton. He still brings all his day one friends to his shows and supports the up and coming local artist. He also comes through the hood with no security, often giving out shoes and whatnot to the kids. Real humble guy. Went to middle and high school with Natalie Portman. Nothing changed. If you didn't know she was famous, you wouldn't know it from how she acted. She kept the same friends, the same boyfriend, stayed the same tiny, reserved smart girl, or so it seemed. She was just in class less. Went to boarding school with Tom Hiddleston, shared French, Latin and Greek classes. He was into acting back then, did a few school plays, lead role, was a nice, intelligent, friendly guy, was a school prefect in final year, a little bit chubbier, but I guess now he's got a personal trainer. We don't stay in touch now, before you ask, but from what I can tell he's got the same manners and airs. We do have the same accent though. Chris Evans, Captain America in the Avengers movies and the Human Torch in the Fantastic Four movies from about 10 years ago, lived down the street from me and was my babysitter. His mom directs the plays at my town's high school. I haven't seen him since I was little, but when he was in high school he was just a normal dude. Nothing about him screamed I'm gonna be famous one day. It was just sorta, I'm good at this acting thing and it just so happens that people who are good at acting get famous. Also, my mom used to be a casting director for Tim Burton and lived next door to George Clooney back in like 1989. We went back to her old house when we were visiting LA and saw him with his entourage. My mom said that the only difference is the people who hang around him, and that other than the fact that he has an entourage now he's exactly the same. When the Trailer Park Boys first started filming, they were actually using people's homes for sets. Whenever they broke stuff, they would fix it themselves. I worked at a hardware store and sold them a lot of stuff. They were basically normal people that dressed like they still thought it was the late 90s. My mom went to high school with Andy Dong. He was running for class president his senior year, as were a bunch of jocks. His posters said, "Don't for a jock, vote for a Dong." The school allowed him to have that. He won BTW. I was friends with Amy Winehouse before she made it big. She even dated a good friend of mine. She was fun, full of life and totally hyperactive. She, obviously, had an amazing voice, but I always rolled my eyes when she talked about being a singer. Shows how much I know. We lost touch when her career took off, and the version of her at the end was totally unrecognizable from the Amy I knew. My uncle is Rob Thomas from Matchbox 20. I was in about 4th grade when the first album came out and I thought I was hot crap because of it. I still don't see a difference in him, besides he has money now and can do more stuff than before. I grew up down the road from Betsy Brandt from Breaking Bad and she is the nicest person you could ever meet. I like to imagine she wore only purple in real life, too. Don't ruin this for me. My little sister is friends with Lorde. I've only had a few conversations with her before she got super famous and she was always kinda edgy and full of creativity. Nice to see her music reflects herself too. I knew Russell Wilson from when he was famously a minor league baseball player. My brother and I both worked for the last baseball team he played for and both of our jobs had us in the players clubhouse frequently. He was exactly as he is now. Dude knew he sucked so he would get there at 5-6 am to hit off of a pitching machine. Many times he couldn't find anyone that would do it with him, so my brother would meet him in the morning to run the machine and they'd work out together. Anytime we needed a player to do those annoying giveaway signatures or go to the hospital to see kids, he would volunteer to go. I was there when he cleaned out his locker after he told the team in the Colorado Rockies that he was going to play football at Wisconsin. He gave my brother a lot of his equipment, shoes, bats, balls, practice jerseys. As he left, he gave us all hugs, told everyone he loved them and thanked them for helping him when he needed it. And the last thing he said was, hopefully you guys will see me on Sundays. I've met many professional athletes, a large number of them playing in MLB right now, and Russell Wilson was the nicest of any of them. And it wasn't even close. Oh, and he has huge dong, so there's that. Steve Carell is the uncle of a girl from my high school class. I've seen him around my town a few times and he's a super nice, down-to-earth guy, exactly how you'd expect him to be. Steve Carell went to an all-boys middle school in my town, well known for churning out goofy weirdos. When my friends and I first heard he went there, we were like, that makes a lot of sense, he would be a fun kid. Not me, but my gran was the babysitter of Simon Cowell and his brother when they were little. She told me he was a little crap and his brother wasn't much better. My sister dated Sebastian Stan in high school. I used to play StarCraft with him and we played varsity soccer together. He's always been a rad dude, and we always knew he'd make it in show business. Unreal to see him in The Covenant and Captain America. I've known one of the guys from NSYNC my whole life. He used to tease the crap out of his sisters, and me, and my sisters, but in a fun way. The entire family is awesome. He currently runs charitable foundations. He didn't get mad when my son broke his 4-foot-tall collector item Voltron 2 years ago, then peed in his pool. He also has a square toilet. It's strange. My girlfriend used to be friends with Indio Downey, Robert Downey Jr.'s son. They went to the same high school in LA. Funny story. After a party at their ranch house or whatever, her and her friend crashed on the couch and were awoken by our DJ yelling breakfast time and doing a flip over the couch where they were sleeping. He then offered them eggs and bacon. She said he was a real nice guy, but India had just started doing some pretty hard drugs around then. I want to believe that our DJ can just flip over a couch holding a plate of eggs and bacon. Billie Joe from Green Day is pretty down. I didn't really know him in the olden days. He was already famous in the punk scene, before Dookie, but we chatted a couple times and he was always cool. One time I had to ask him to leave an all-ages club because he was drinking from a bottle in a paper bag, and he was like, up, and took the bottle out of the bag to reveal it was an Arizona iced tea. We kind of had a laugh over that. Post-fame, he lived in my friend's neighborhood in Oakland, and my friend's neighbor, who is a kid, strung like 20 extension cords together, and him and his friend started playing Green Day songs on electric guitar outside the gate to his driveway. Billy came out and was like, guys, this is super cool, but I'm eating dinner and you're going to bug everyone else in the neighborhood. Just come over sometime. Later he moved to a new neighborhood so his kids could go to a better, public, school. Also apparently he has saved all his $. He had a BMW and his wife had some nice SUV, but in the 4+ years I drove past his house almost every day to get to my friends. They never got a new car. Also, Trey flies southwest, or at least he used to, because I saw him on multiple Oak, birth flights. He did have a mini entourage of his wife and nanny and kid though. I believe that mini entourage you speak of is called a family. I can't really tell you what she was like, but my dad dated Jodie Foster when they were in the 2nd grade. I believe she is lesbian now. Good going, Dad. Your dad is a Mac Daddy because Jodie Foster was pretty famous at that age as well. A longtime family friend of ours' grandmother was very close with Al Capone. Her last name was Graziano, and she used to sit on his lap when she was a kid. She referred to him as Uncle Al even when she was old woman. When all the news started to break about his criminal activity, she just refused to believe it. Even just before she died, she still claimed he was innocent and he was framed because of how gentle he was with her. Her denial makes perfect sense. My favorite quote from Al Capone is, "Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. I am kind to everyone, but when someone is unkind to me, weak is not what you are going to remember about me." Sounds like he was nice to people, as long as you didn't get in the way of his money. I knew Chloe Moretz. Her family lived in my hometown until she was about 8. They were very wealthy and lived in probably the biggest house in town. She was best friends with a girl who went to my ballet school and hung around there a good bit. She was shy and quiet, but always very polite. Weirdly enough, her friend who went to my ballet school was prettier and more outgoing and tried to get into acting first. We all thought she'd be the one to get famous. Chloe always kind of just sat around. I don't know how she's changed. Haven't seen her since they moved. I went to high school with Seth Rogen. He was a very funny guy and couldn't really keep quiet in class because he was always thinking up funny crap. Our math teacher came up with a solution to this. Seth would have the floor to himself for 5 minutes every Monday. In exchange, he'd keep quiet the rest of the week. It was great. Seth would do a hilarious monologue every week, telling outrageous stories about what he'd been up to over the weekend, often integrating the teacher and members of the class in the story. Haha, dang you lucky bastard. My friend's uncle is Ewan McGregor. I played a few games of footy with him at his party once. It was great. This was 12 Wyoming who was Star Wars obsessed. Got to play footy with Obi-Wan Kenobi. In the flesh, haha, he was a really nice dude apparently. My dad had a few drinks with him and talked about the area where we live. My life was made at that point. I literally had the biggest nerdism possible. He even gave us all Star Wars goodie bags with a toy lightsaber. Not me personally, but my mom used to know Jim Carrey before he was a big famous actor. She's told me a few stories, but apparently he was just as funny and insane, in a good way, back then as he is in his movies today. She spent a Halloween with him and a bunch of friends, answering the door for trick-or-treaters. Apparently, every time he'd come to the door, he'd be somebody completely different. Just act completely like someone else, completely improv off the top of his head. The kids were amused, but they just wanted candy. The parents would come back a couple times throughout the night just to see what this guy would come up with next. And my dad apparently helped get Hayden Christensen started. He's never told me all that much about it, though, so my parents are interesting at least. So I got that going for me, which is nice. I went to high school with Drake. This was in his Degrassi days and he already thought he was hot crap. He was a year older than me, so I didn't really know him that well. But you know that song started from the bottom, yeah. He's from the fanciest neighborhood in Toronto and rolled up to school every day in his grandma's Benz. I don't think anyone really thinks Drake came from hardship. His Degrassi past is not unheard of. Pope Francis, aka Jorge Bergoglio, was my neighbor. As an atheist with a not at all good opinion on the Catholic Church, I always wished to see him on a limo or covered in gold, just to criticize. But I must say that even during the months before his election, the guy took the subway along with me, wore the same old shoes and just looked pretty humble. That's beautiful. I really do think Pope Francis is revolutionizing the way we see religion, specifically that of the Catholics. My Latin teacher from high school taught Vince Gilligan, the executive producer of Breaking Bad. She told me he was a very quiet kid. He would write short stories in class and let her read them. She said that most of his stories were very morbid and grotesque. They were, however, all very well written. I went to high school with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I use quotations because he was filming Third Rock from the Sun at the time, so I hardly ever saw him on campus. The few times that I did notice him on campus were when other students were making fun of him for his role in Angels in the Outfield. They'd walk by him and mock him by doing the angel wing flapping thing from the movie with their arms. Felt bad for the guy. One day, I was in line at the cafeteria by myself and realized he was in front of me talking with a couple of his friends. I waited for a lull in their conversation and asked if he was JGL. I knew it was him, but just wanted to say anything to start a conversation. He immediately says no. I was obviously shocked by his response since I knew it was him. He followed up that I must have had him mistaken for someone else and returned to his conversation with his friends. I didn't really see it as an butthole move since I think he just liked being at school as a regular kid and not as an actor, especially with the mocking bullying I've seen him go through previously. This thread makes me wonder what people would say about me if I ever become famous. If you see this while scrolling, you've been visited by the rare double banana. You will be granted 5 years of good luck, but only if you comment thank you, oh scared long yellow ones. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.